It's time, ladies and gents, about to spit about some film reels. Copping the field to seal the deal of what the films reveal. Batman, Superman, even Spider-Man compared to fair against each other, tearing apart the plots that they prepare. But these are just a few examples for the task at hand. On demand with cinematic contraband to shock the fans. To preach the theme, title, film, eat film. Tis the keen regime for cinema guillotines to rock my rhyme kiln.
This Sunday, I'm gonna rip his head off and dump down his neck.
This Sunday, I'm gonna decapitate your ego and feed it to Sigmund Freud's ghost.
I've seen this guy battle, then I fell asleep.
I see you creeping at me, Rumpelstiltskin, but keep your distance, cause my skills are like a whirlwind.
For the sake of the top draw, this kid better beat me.
And for the sake of your conscience, I'll try to be humane in my vocal dominance.
Welcome, Movie Munchers. We have a special episode for you today. Today is the first episode in our new tournament. Today we have Scott Icebox Nemi
Woo!
and Aiden, who doesn't get a nickname yet.
Yeah.
He's got to earn it.
Aiden Toyton Sauerland.
Titans!
There we go.
That's
there we
my
go.
self-proclaimed nickname.
I'm this episode's host, Ben Siski. Now, let me break this down to you. You may have heard me in the beginning, but this is a tournament, which means we have randomly selected different people to go against each other in our first ever tournament. We have 4 people on bye, so for those of you taking notes at home, and hopefully we'll have a link up to this in our description, but we've got 4 people on bye: Blake, Joey, Damon, and Kaylin. And then the order of the matchups, it's going to go Scott versus Aiden, and then the winner of that will play Joey. Then we also have a matchup of Steven versus Seawells. The winner of that will play the number 1 seed Blake. And then in the bottom half of the tournament, we have Sierra versus Taylor. Winner of that will play Damon Choke Job Gumbert. And then followed by Trace and Franco. Winner of that will play Kaylin. Not an exciting one there, but hey, that's okay. So, today we've got some pretty good topics for you. We're going to get right into it, but I just want to get some opening comments. You guys heard some trash talk in the beginning. Scott, what's that all about?
Look, me and Toyton Sauerland go way back, and we're playing for blood money now. I'm going for broke. I'm gonna take this tournament, and Damon better be ready to buy a belt for me.
All right. You got anything to say to that,
You
Dave?
know how it is. I mean, at the end of the day, we're friends. We're just trying to have fun. But once the mic turns on, it's a different story, you know, Scott?
Titans!
Well, we did our coin flip prior to the show, and Aiden won and decided to go second. So we're actually going to open things up right away to Scott. Scott's going to give us his topic, and he's going to have 3 minutes. You guys know the drill. Scott, you got 3 minutes. Go.
Yeah, okay, so in this first round of action-adventure movies, I picked Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Look at, when you defined action-adventure films, you have 2 different segments. You need the action, you need the adventure. What's the action? Well, you have swashbuckling action, you have pirates, you have cannons, you have all sorts of different weapons blowing, explosions everywhere. There's your high seas adventure action. Now here's the adventure part. You have the open sea, the Caribbean. You have pirates on beautiful natural ships. You have Port Royal. You have Tortuga. You have all sorts of different destinations that these guys are traveling to. It's not just a stand in one spot kind of movie. It's all about the adventure of sailing the high seas with these incredible, incredible characters. And obviously the practical effects of the explosions of the cannonballs, the gunfire, the swordsmanship, everything is awesome. The plot. This is pirate action along with their adventurous goal. They have to return this money. The bad guys have to return this money to a giant chest in this hidden cave full of treasures in order to regain their fullness, their human-like fullness. But along the way, they take the wrong person captive. So the lover, and obviously everyone knows Captain Jack Sparrow. Johnny Depp got an Oscar nod for his performance in this film. They have to go and track her down to get her back. and try to destroy these pirates, which are cursed. Now, the characters drive this story. From the opening scene, you have this desolate, very almost suffocating scene where there's so much fog. You're introduced to pirates. You're introduced to some of the early characters. Great opening. But what tops it off is when Johnny Depp comes onto the scene. He has to say nothing, and you know that his character is very proud, but also very limbering, and he's always kind of a drunken stupor. He's never worried about anything, as you can see when he floats up just barely enough to get onto the dock, and just plays everything so cool. Look, I think the Terminator 2, I think, is just only action. I don't know where the adventure is in that. And I believe that some people still actually hold Terminator, the original, over Terminator 2. To me, it can be a little bit outdated, but this is a new, fresh take to the action-adventure genre and just sparked a whole new pirate-themed everything. Birthday parties, films. We're still getting Pirates of the Caribbean action-adventure because this one took it to the limits. 8.1 IMDb, 79% Rotten Tomatoes, but, whatever, screw Rotten Tomatoes. 5 Oscar nominations we're talking about. Best action-adventure movie.
Finish your thought.
Takes over the whole genre. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to stop you there. And before we get into a rebuttal, Aiden, you're going to have 3 minutes to debate your movie. Please give us the title of your movie. You've got 3 minutes. Go for it.
All right, my film that I picked was Terminator 2 Judgment Day, 8.5 on IMDb, 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. James Cameron's the director, phenomenal director. This movie specifically also made Arnold Schwarzenegger a superstar in the cinematic world. Many sequels followed as a result of this movie today. Hollywood has really latched onto this film and ran with it while even producing a TV show. In the process, this film has also made Sarah and Sean Connor the designated characters in the film, household names in this film, as well as Arnold Schwarzenegger. There was great marketing leading into it, from the first Terminator leading into Terminator 2, which ultimately made it a great success in the long run. And Terminator 2 is actually considered to be better than the first Terminator, which barely happens among sequels. Another point, Arnold Schwarzenegger versus Robert Patrick, the cyborg versus cyborg theme in the film, I thought just was a great Terminator clash. The adventure and struggle to capture and kill Sean Connor is also extremely epic and whatnot. And just kind of elaborating on Sean Connor's character specifically in this film, his child character, really makes the cinematic experience itself that much more compelling in avoiding certain death. Also, the visual effects of this time period at its release were really phenomenal. And also, the story really captures a human relationship between Arnold and kid Sean Connor. Cyborgs aren't supposed to have feelings or show compassion, but watching this film really makes one question that human emotion cannot necessarily replicate, but instill into others emotions based on one's experiences in this film. Also, Arnold Schwarzenegger is kind of seen as a fatherly figure and whatnot. Almost like another theme is like an imitation in society. It's in a philosophical sense, as Arnold states in the film, Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's in our nature to destroy ourselves. We may not be destroyed by machines in this world currently right now, but our tendencies as humans to feed, grow, and consume until our resources and relationships with each other are depleted really reflects the Terminator fictional world in which it bestows and whatnot. That's all I got.
All right, we're going to stop you there. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll head right into the rebuttal round, which is, of course, a 2-minute round. Scott, you've got the honors of going first. Your time starts now.
Seeing as though we don't have a fact checker tonight, I'm going to be the fucking fact checker. It's John Connor, not Sean Connor. That's not even my movie, and I know that. And here's another question that I pose. Where is the adventure? You said the adventure was chasing down John Connor, but what adventure is that? It's just a kid running scared. In that case, you can call all the horror movies when people are getting chased around by Jason or Michael Myers, you can call that an adventure film. But it's not. It's horror. This film, Terminator 2, is all action. That's what it is. You don't have any travels to one specific destination. They're going all over the place, but it doesn't seem like it's placed there on purpose. It's just a wild goose chase. That's what it is. And actually, the character John Connor is being said as it taking away from the film. It's actually not a strong point of the film. It's that people who have knocks on this this film, it's because John Connor is a weak character. You want to go back to Curse of the Black Pearl. You want to talk about chemistry. Let's look at the love story between Will and Elizabeth, and you have sort of this love triangle going on, which still it's great because you have the action that all these guys are going against each other for this one girl, but then you also have the adventure of finding that sort of damsel in distress, quote unquote, because she actually can really handle herself, which is almost like the Sarah Connor character in Terminator 2. Or should I say, never mind, I was going to go for a joke and I'm going to hit. Sorry. But
We like the attempt.
but what I'm saying here is that as a whole, in the action-adventure genre, I'm not seeing any adventure, or not as much adventure as this film does. And I think the action, along with the action that you guys have in T2, I think they go hand in hand. So that thing that puts my film over the edge over yours is the fact that they're going all over the Caribbean Sea. They're going to different ports. They're going to different islands. And then obviously that feeling and sense of adventure, almost like it's out of a storybook, that you get with this film is through the roof.
Kind of cut you off there.
Yeah. Whew.
All right.
Come on, fight.
I'll fight.
Well done, Scott. Well done. Aiden, 2 minutes. Go for it.
Alright, as far as you saying that Terminator 2 doesn't really have adventure to it, I don't really see that, because if you really look at the relationship between John Connor and Arnold, I mean, how is that not an adventure right there? These two are just feeding off each other the whole time, just running for their lives, escaping from the other Terminator, just really trying to fend for themselves and whatnot. Also, I thought The Curse of the Black Pearl had a great storyline, star-studded cast, but it didn't really seem to me have the same impact as Terminator 2 do for their respective time periods. It truly takes a classic for a sequel also to be better than the original and move forward with artistic style. Look at the Pirate sequels. Yeah, they're good, but I think one can argue that they got progressively worse after the first two.
Because he set the bar so high.
Black Pearl is playful, great movie in its respect, but it reflects fantasy more than cultural and societal relevance. Terminator 2 may be fictional, but its theories reflect how society is all kind of turning on itself. Skynet almost symbolizes the negative aspects of our humanity, to consume until everything is depleted and do whatever it takes to do so. That's all I got.
All right. Stop you there. Gentlemen, great first round. Let me just tally a couple things up, and I will find our winner. All right. I've got the results here, gentlemen. And I gotta say, it was closer than you'd think. Scott, how do you think you did?
I'm pretty happy. I don't think I could have done much better.
Yeah. Aiden, how do you feel?
Sean, how do you feel?
I mean, I thought I did solid,
It's solid.
but I feel like Scott overall just had more content and different perspectives than I did.
I agree. And honestly, it pretty much came down to Scott filled his time pretty well. Scott actually went over the time because he was still doing his arguments. You failed to fill the full 3-minute and 2-minute rebuttal, which isn't a huge deal or anything, but let me just kind of tell you what I kind of based everything off of. You both brought up great cast, so I kind of just voided that out. I think that Aiden's rebuttal was actually pretty solid for the 1 minute that it was. I think he did a pretty good job that explaining that there actually is adventure in T2.
You swayed me, man.
Despite what people may think. And I think he did a great job at talking about how that sequel is better than the original. And I agree with you when you say that Pirates of the Caribbean does slowly go downhill, whether or not the bar was set high or not. The point is, it was a pretty good rebuttal, but ultimately Scott just had way better content. He described his topic way better. He supported his arguments way better. So just that time management really hurt, and Scott pretty much did solid in all aspects. So there you have it. But guess what? That's only round one. We're headed into round two, where Aiden is actually going to go first because he went second the first round. So I'm going to reset the timer here. Aiden, why don't you give us the title of your movie, and then you will have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
All right, for best Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, Jean-Claude Van Damme, I picked Bloodsport. This movie specifically is a portrayal of the martial artist Frank Dux, who is training to win the Kumite, which is basically kind of like an underground martial arts tournament where many people are killed in the process just because of the fighting and whatnot. I thought this journey was really captured beautifully in Jean-Claude Van Damme's perspective. One thing I'm going to note, he ends up winning this Kumite tournament, and historically only Asians have done so. Obviously it's based off of Hong Kong. So from like a cultural perspective, he really breaks that stereotype of Asian martial art dominance and whatnot. And on top of that, the story leading up to it is, to say the least, impeccable. Frank Dux's character is actually enlisted in the military, ends up going AWOL in order to go to Hong Kong to participate in this Kumite fighting championship and whatnot. And it's almost like he's fighting in two perspectives. He's fighting for his life to not get enslaved for a long period of time from going AWOL on the military. And he's also training as hard as he can to fight for this Kumite championship, in which case he might also die in the process. But anyway, he ends up winning the whole thing, beating the defending champion Chong Li, who has been known to kill multiple participants, so that's another risk he is willing to take. He's not just fighting for his life, but he's attempting to live his life in an alternative light, rather than conforming to the American way of life, which he has bestowed upon himself. His character doesn't want that for himself. He wants to follow his dream, even if that means dying to do so. It also had a 6.8 out of 10 on IMDb, 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I feel like this movie compared to, can I announce your film? I can't do that, right?
Yeah, go for it.
So Scott picked Sudden Death, and his movies are more of like an Americanized, like everyone versus terrorist position, which, yeah, you can draw cultural relevance to terrorism and whatnot, but based on the category of Jean-Claude Van Damme's perspective, I feel like it really just encapsulated his whole character, and it just really epitomized what he does in his movies. That's all I got.
All right, gonna stop you there. And then Scott, you've got 3 minutes for your movie. Why don't you just repeat what your movie is, and then the 3 minutes is yours. Go for it.
All right, I got Sudden Death, Jean-Claude Van Damme, 1995. 5.7 IMDb, 52 Rotten Tomatoes. I always want to call to the attention of the jury that I believe Bloodsport is actually a 33% on Rotten Tomatoes. With that said, I believe that...
Audience.
Is it audience?
I picked the audience.
Oh! All right.
Not the tomato meter.
All right. So I think Sudden Death is something new for Van Damme. You have so much going on. You have the foil Powers Booth, who gives a stunning performance like he usually does in the villainous role. He's in Sin City. He's the evil guy. He's in Tombstone. He's the evil guy. He portrays villainy very, very well. I think you get a vulnerability from Jean-Claude Van Damme in Sudden Death more so than you do in any of his other films. He has kids at this hockey game, and the vice president is stuck with a whole bunch of other hostages up in one of the suites, and it's a big hockey game. It's Penguins versus the Rangers. It's a Stanley Cup playoff game. excuse me, and they planted bombs all over the arena, and they're set to go off after the game ends. Well, what does he have to do as a fireman? He has to leave his kids, make sure, peek in on them every now and then, and find these bombs to save everybody in the stadium. And not only that, he has to play cat and mouse with the man who has taken all these people hostage. So he's balancing 3 different plots here, plot points. You got an A plot, a B plot, and a C plot going on in this one. There's a lot going on, but it works. You have a great story arc with his son, who's sort of this teenager with this teenage angst towards his father, and he's got to realize that his father's trying his best. And at the end, you have this really heartfelt scene between the son and the dad, Jean-Claude Van Damme, where he just tells the boy, "Stay put." And then everyone's running out and screaming, and the kid just stays put, and they embrace. It's beautiful. It's great. What it also has is the over-the-top action that you want to find in these movies with Jean-Claude Van Damme. He kicks ass, all right? But he does it in a way that is a little bit more believable than going to this Hong Kong underground tournament as a freaking AWOL soldier, which is just, nowadays someone will watch that and be like, oh, you commie, you what are you, some sort of anti-American or whatever it is. But like I said, it has that over-the-top nature. At a part, he actually goes onto the ice and plays goalie. That's how over-the-top this is. But it gets personal because his daughter gets abducted by this guy, right? And you have all of this going on where he's trying to capture all of these bombs, and he's got a guy who's supposedly his friend, maybe not his friend, but it's a great film overall.
All right, stop you there. Thank you, gentlemen. Aiden, you've got 2 minutes on a rebuttal. Your time starts now.
Okay, so like I stated before, I thought Sudden Death was just kind of like an Americanized version of Jean-Claude Van Damme's character. A lot is at stake, and it's very action-packed, but I feel like it just lacks the substance of Bloodsport. I also said before, you can relate cultural relevance to terrorism, but Bloodsport just provides a little more essence into Van Damme's character in general, which is the main argument for my rebuttal. He's at war with himself and pursuing his passion, breaking cultural boundaries between race and equality as well. If we're talking about Van Damme film in general, or his films in general, and using his character as criteria for judging his films, I thought Bloodsport just displayed his best character and acting drive out of compared to all of his films. The worldwide cultural relevance compared to the Americanized version of Sudden Death has more substance than Sudden Death. Van Damme is at his best in Bloodsport, sure. Sudden Death may be a new look in his character or something to build off of in his diverse acting portfolio, but we're talking about his best work and not necessarily just a knockoff in which he fights terrorists and is trying to save the vice president and whatnot. So I just think Bloodsport was his all-time best movie.
All right. Stop you there. Scott, 2 minutes, rebuttal. Go for it.
Yeah, Bloodsport, I think very sound movie in a way. If you're looking for a Jean-Claude Van Damme that is sort of sets him in that same sort of grouping like a Steven Seagal. Why don't you see more Steven Seagal? It's because he never stepped outside the box. What you get with Sudden Death is a step outside the box, a more dramatic role. And this guy, believe it or not, he has the chops to pull it off. And yet he can still do that. He can still balance the action and the kick-assness with the fact that he's in there fighting for his kids and all of these people that are going to be killed if once one goal is scored in overtime. But look, Bloodsport is just a mesh of all these other films. There's so much kickboxing. Lionheart, which I believe is a better movie. It did Bloodsport better than Bloodsport. Kickboxer is an actual film that he did. Cyborg, Death Warrant. It's all there. It's all about the sport of them fighting in this underground, this underground thing. And the only award that you got is a Razzie Award for Worst Newcoming Actor. My Sudden Death didn't even get awards, which is better than what you got. Look, and it's true that you think Jean-Claude Van Damme. Yeah, you can think that role of kickboxing, but you can't sit there and pick one movie out. It's just a crap ton. It's all glued together. And this is, like I said, it's a different side, more dramatic. He didn't want to be considered only a fighter, so he chose this film to show his actual range in acting. And Sudden Death is the reason. I mean, the reason why USA ran his movies all day was because of Sudden Death. I mean, that was the primetime slot. Give it to me.
All right, gonna stop you there. Thank you, gentlemen, for the rebuttals. Gonna quick tally this up, and we'll find out who the winner is of round 2. All right, results are in, and this is one of the hardest decisions I've had to make. Basically, what it came down to is I feel like both of you had relatively the same argument, just argued it different. You both were trying to tell me how different Van Damme was in his movie than normal. Like, in Bloodsport, he was breaking stereotypes, and in Sudden Death, he was, a father, he was just an ass kicker, like, it was so hard to decide who, was arguing better, basically. I thought Scott had a pretty solid rebuttal. Both of you, I feel like, did, address your topic fairly well. And Bloodsport did have higher ratings, and I did take that into consideration if we're going off of audience. It also had a higher rating on IMDb as well, though. But I really like what Aiden said, where basically there was more worldwide relevance, and, Sudden Death just kind of lacks that substance. As close as this was, I did end up giving it to Aiden. So, with that said, love me or hate me, I'm the judge, deal with it. We are headed into round 3 to decide who takes on, I believe it was
Jane
Blake.
Eames. No, Jane Eames.
Oh, yeah, that's right, Joey. All right. Scott, you're going to get to go first here in round 3. You got 3 minutes. Why don't you just go ahead and give us the title of your movie, and then the 3 minutes is yours. Go.
All right, so we got family films here, and I got Holes. Holes is a wonderful story that stays true to the book and is beloved by families all over. It has a family-friendly message and story that imprints itself into the mind. You have great young actors, Cleo Thomas. You have Shia LaBeouf. You have Sigourney Weaver, Jon Voight, Tim Blake Nelson, Henry Winkler. All these great cast members that imprint themselves, not just their Hollywood names, but their actual characters into you. Here's where it gets a little difficult. I feel like Holes brings conversation after the fact. Toy Story is geared more towards kind of setting kids down in front of the tube or taking them to the movie to entertain them in a way that would get them to just be quiet for a little while, kind of before tablets were around, right? But I think that when you look at Holes and you have a family atmosphere and you sit down and watch this movie, they can relate to it a little bit more because it's live action. They deal with themes and struggles to fit in like any other normal kid in America would. And honestly, being in the wrong place at the wrong time is something I think we all can relate to. Now, with that said, you sit down with a family and you watch that, and it's going to invoke conversation. You talk about what happened during the movie. You laugh about what happened during the movie. But it also is so great because Louis Sachar, the author of Holes, was one of the producers on the movie and actually was in the movie and helped it stay on track. But yet, the film actually leaves its own imprint. It leaves its own story, its own trail that runs parallel to the book. And the reason I say parallel is because it's very, very close, but it's not the same, which is great. You have so much going on. 7.1 on IMDb, 77% on Rotten Tomatoes. For a lot of people, they think it was like a throwaway flick, something that you'd go to and just forget about it because it's Disney live action. It's not Pixar. It's not Disney animation. Look, we're talking about family films. Listen to these family awards. Young Artist Award nomination, Best Family Feature Film Drama, PFCS nomination, Live Action Family Film. Nominated for the Critics' Choice, Best Family Film. Sierra winner for Best Family Film. What do all those have in common? All those awards have in common the fact that it's a family feature. And it's noted not just by the critics or the people who you have going to see these movies at the actual award ceremonies. It's the people sitting in their living rooms with their families that see these as a family film. Everybody loves it. Ask anybody.
Well, maybe I'll have to ask Aiden what he thinks. Maybe he'll tell us in his rebuttal here. But that's not for a while yet. Aiden, you've got 3 minutes to tell us about your movie. Go ahead and drop the title, and then 3 minutes is yours. Go.
Alright, so my family film was Toy Story, 8.3 on IMDb, 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. Got a star-studded cast, obviously animated film, voiceovers and whatnot, Tom Hanks and Tim Allen. It was also the first feature-length computer animated film in 1995, also noted as Pixar's most important and influential film of all time, cited by Tim Roby in an article from thetelegraph.com. And also, this film may be a children's movie per se and an animated film, but it's also a family film. Through the toy fantasy, one can really draw parallels from their own family as well as material items. Ultimately, the main theme of this film is the transcendence of love. The toy family, consisting of Woody, Buzz, and the rest of the bunch, didn't start out so smoothly, but over time they grew to love each other, one another and whatnot, and overcome adversity based on their care for each other. One can also draw love parallels from Andy's perspective, who is the owner of all the toys and whatnot. He cherishes all of his toys. They may be materials, but his childlike innocence and love for these materials specifically ultimately brings their characters to life in a reflection of Andy himself. Although feeble-minded, children may not be able to understand the complexity of these themes. That's ultimately what makes it a great family movie. Take Mom and Dad, for instance. They may be able to discover these themes, maybe even the semi-intelligent 16-year-old girl or boy teen in the family and whatnot. But even though the children may not be able to understand it, they can most certainly feel it. That warm feeling in their heart that may urge them, as well as countless others, to watch Toy Story again in an attempt to feel the same way they did when they first saw the flick. And that's really what family movies inspire to do. Toy Story transcended the boundaries of materials and animation and deserves to be credited as a historically great family film. That's all I got.
All right. I'm going to stop you there. Scott, you've got 2 minutes on a rebuttal here. Your time starts now.
Look, I'm dealing with an uphill battle. Toy Story, the reason why that guy said it's one of the most influential films that Pixar ever did is because it was the first one they ever did. Completely animated by computers. Of course it's going to be a film that you look back at as being historical. Here's the thing. Toy Story is great, okay? I'm not doubting that. I'm not even batting an eye at that. But if I'm having family movie night, the idea that Toy Story has numerous chapters downplays its family value. Okay, I'm sitting down here, we're all three a family, I say, hey, you want to go watch Holes? You either think, yes, I want to watch Holes, or you think, no. When Toy Story comes up, it's not Toy Story 1 I want to watch. It could be Toy Story 2. It could be Toy Story 3. You set 5 people in a room, they're going to say, well, I like Toy Story 3 better than Toy Story 1, but I think Toy Story 2 is better than Toy Story 1, but a little less than Toy Story 3. You can go back and forth all day because it has 3 chapters, not just one like Holes. Holes is one singular item, and it is a great one at that. it's not, Toy Story is being outshined by the other emerging Pixar classics. Toy Story, because it came first, is losing its brightness unless you have to make a list of what my favorite Pixar film is. It's not family oriented just yet because it's so back in the distance. It's from like 99. Look, it's kind of a cheap way out because you can take any Disney Pixar movie or just Disney animated for that matter, throw it in there and say, "Hey, I got the best family film to boot." I took a little bit lesser known film, but one that you can still actually ask people and what they have. You have people who have this on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray. You got it all because they found a way to connect to this film. Look, there is also
Final thought. Go ahead.
good. What final thought is this: that it has a little bit of a Christian aspect to the songs that really can hook parents in. It's good, wholesome family entertainment. Well, the kids, it blows right over their head because the songs are paired so well with the scenes. That's all I gotta say.
All right, thank you. Aiden, 2 minutes, rebuttal. Go for it.
All right. I thought Holes was without a doubt a great family film, but I just feel like it lacked the substance of drawing multiple parallels towards family, you know, just if we're talking about family films in general. Sure, Stanley and Zero and the gang had great experiences in kindling their friendships as well as considering one another family, but Toy Story does a lot more than that. The beauty of Toy Story for me is really the animation. Animated films allow one to be purely creative and draw from so many different perspectives. The possibilities are really limitless. I really enjoy the cinematography and storytelling of Holes, but does that, as well as the substance of the film, trump Toy Story's plethora of creative substance? In my mind, Holes portrays a group of troubled adolescents who find friendship and love for each other, in a sense, gaining the essence of a family. But the story is mainly told through Zero and Stanley's perspectives, while Toy Story has its main characters, but ultimately you can relate to a wide variety of characters in the film, Mr. Potato Head, T-Rex, and whatnot. You know the gang. All in all, from the creativity of animation and family perspectives in general, Toy Story draws more of a storyline and family values and perspectives, as well as the cinematic enjoyment than Holes. And as far as Holes is concerned, why didn't it have a sequel? Just because it was too good to have one?
Because it wasn't money grubbing.
Because it wasn't money grubbing.
It was Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 done, and you got what you needed wrapped
True.
up in all that.
We're talking about the original Toy Story before they were thinking about putting out sequels, you know?
All right. Stop you there. Gentlemen, great third round. Just give me a second to get this tallied up here. All right, round 3 in the books. Before I go over my thoughts here, Aiden, how do you think you did?
Just in the third round in general?
Yeah. You think you got it?
I thought I did pretty solid. I thought Scott did really well, too. I just kind of laid it all out.
Sure.
I think Scott knows a little more about movies than me, but
he's kind of a punk.
I just tried, you know.
Yeah, no, I think Aiden definitely earned his seed today. So I'm proud and nervous at the same time.
Yeah, I think you both did phenomenal. I took way more notes in that third round than I did the first two. You guys had a ton to say. I really liked that. It was pretty hard to decide who was the winner. So with that said, before I go over why the winner of the first round in this tournament is Scott Eisbach Nemi.
A big sigh of relief.
And here's why. I think you guys both did a great job at explaining the topic, explaining your movie. You guys both explained how the actors were great, how you fell in love with the cast and everything, how they're relatable to a family movie, how you just love everyone in them and everything. What it came down to, honestly, it was, Scott, you won by 1 point. And it was time management, and I thought you had a little stronger of a rebuttal than Aiden did. And that's essentially it. I mean, you guys both had such good points. Scott, I did like how you were saying how Toy Story does start to become outshined by other Disney Pixar films. Because even though it is, one of the most influential animation movies, I agree that it's because it is, relatively one of the first ones. So it's like, yeah, now you can kind of see that there are better ones out there. Not trying to discredit Toy Story. I mean, the ratings that you mentioned, Aiden, prove that it is a phenomenal movie, but ultimately, just that time management, and I think Scott had a little bit better of a rebuttal, is why you lost by 1 point. So it wasn't easy. It wasn't a landslide or anything, but
Good show in AIDS.
good show. Definitely good show. With that said, everyone, please comment what you think. This is just the first round in the tournament. Like I said, we've got plenty more to come. So, Scott, that means we're going to have a little family showdown coming up here. You versus Joey.
Yeah.
But that's probably won't be for a while. We got to get the other 3 matches in the first round before we move into the second round. So everyone just feel free to tune in, listen. We'll try to keep you up to date as much as we can. Like I said, we'll try to put a link in the comments as well just so you can kind of see the bracket. I know it's kind of hard to explain, especially if you're not familiar with brackets or anything. But like, share, comment, subscribe. Subscribe. We're up to 53.
53, baby.
53.
We're slowly becoming the we're actually losing our best kept secret on YouTube status. So we want to do that. So
Yeah.
keep subscribing. Tell people about it.
I'm gonna subscribe right after this, fellas.
Aiden hasn't even subscribed. Can you believe that? He's on the
Come on.
show. Hasn't even subscribed
Come
yet.
on.
All right, folks. Well, Movie Munchers, until next time, stay classy.